Test 1 2. Test 1 2.
We're going to call to order the City Council meeting for Monday, August 21st, 2023. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. And then before we go any further, in honor of the young man who has lost his life over the weekend at our beach, our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and all those involved. We will have a moment of silence. Thank you for that. We will have a little bit more insight on that issue as we get further along in Greg's city manager's report from both of our chiefs. Roll call, Amanda.
Jeff Delkey.
Here.
Tracy Coach.
Here.
Bill Leclerc.
Here.
Darla Leclerc.
Here.
Tim Petrie.
Here.
Donnie Shimalunas. Scott Steckmesser.
Here.
Adam Ohusky.
Here. We can skip over number 4. Everyone is here, which will bring us to number 5, and that is a public hearing. The public hearing is on an ordinance change zoning from waterfront business to planned unit development district located at the corner of 19th Street and East River Street, submitted by Kip Golden, CR Structures, who is the developer, and the City of Two Rivers, who is the owner of said parcel. The recommended action is a motion to waive reading and adopt the ordinance. Before we open up the public hearing, we'll get a little background from Greg.
Yes, this is, of course, a portion of the former Eggers Industries downtown plant site on the East Twin River, currently owned by the city, identified as a redevelopment site, a priority redevelopment site. We have a development agreement with the Confluence LLC, which is an LLC created for this project, affiliated with CR Structures, as noted here. This is in terms of the zoning, the PUD process this is the first in a 2-part process. First, to change the zoning of the property, but then our PUD ordinance also provides for council action following a public hearing on a very specific site and architectural plan for the property. And you may be aware, site and architectural plan review by the Plan Commission took place last week, last week, Monday, at the regular Plan Commission meeting. The council, though, in the case of a PUD, also holds a hearing and will take specific action on the development plan. So this, again, is the first in a 2-step process.
All right, thank you for that. We will open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on solely this topic, please step up to the podium. My right, your left, state your name and address for the record. We will have 3 calls for the public hearing. Opening up call number 1. Closing call 1 and opening up call number 2. Closing call 2, opening up the 3rd and final call for the public hearing. Closing the 3rd and final call and looking for a motion on this. Thank you, Bill. Seconded by Scott. Thank you. Any council discussion? Seeing none, it's an ordinance change. We will do a roll call vote. Amanda.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Darla Leclerc.
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Donnie Shimalunas.
Aye.
Scott Steckmesser.
Aye.
Adam Ohusky.
Aye.
Jeff Delkey.
Aye. All right, moving on to 6, which is input from the public. Anyone wishing to address the council on something that's on this agenda, something for a future agenda, please step up to the podium. My right, your left, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Don DeBryan. My address is 2304 Nashotah Road in Two Rivers. And I'd just like to address the issue of beach safety in view of what happened Saturday. I'm just wondering if somehow we can have a way of letting the public know when there's a beach hazard warning for our area. This information is available from the National Weather Service by radio, by website, and we don't really have a way of posting that right now at our beach. We do have a water quality sign there, which is changed when the water quality changes, I guess, by the testing up place that does that, which is at the corner of Pierce Street and Zlatnik Drive. And I'd like to see something done either there or a flag on the beach or something when there's a beach hazard. Beach hazards statements are intended to keep people out of the water, really, when the surf is high and there's dangerous currents. And they don't occur that often, but there was a beach hazard warning on Saturday when this drowning happened. And it's tragic. I don't recall a drowning in my 42 years of living here at Nashotah Park, but I'd like to see us do something to prevent that in the future if possible. I grew up on the other side of the lake in Holland, Michigan, and they have a state park there that has a flagging system where they put a red flag up when people are supposed to stay out of the water. There's a green flag when it's fine and a yellow flag when it's somewhat hazardous and perhaps a strong swimmer can go in. But I'd like to see something done fairly soon, and I'm certainly willing to help out changing the sign if necessary. I walk through there every day with my dog early in the morning. I could check if there's a hazard, I'd certainly be willing to change the sign, and I'm sure my neighbors would help me when I'm not available, but I'm here most of the time. So, and even some financial help if the city can't come up with the funds to do something fairly quickly about this. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I did get your email. I know we had an email exchange, so I appreciate all your thought and input put into that email as well. Anybody else input from the public? All right, seeing none, we will move on to 7. Council communications, letters and other communications from citizens. Anyone have anything they'd like to share at this time?
I have a few again. One of them was again with Spectrum, and they're wondering if are we actually getting a rebate or a discount for this whole inconvenience that they're causing people? Or is it just a too bad, so sad?
I guess if you characterize it that way, I would say at this point, it's the too bad, so sad. We are quite often in touch with Spectrum. I suggested to them in my last email that they should be concerned because it's their subscribers, people that get cable, that are saying, where is it? And that want it, and that this council has tried to respond to. But we're told they're still in the process of finalizing the necessary connections. I have a hard time understanding it, but likewise, we didn't enter into a contract that provided for, we could make that pitch because I agree, I don't think they're performing, but there was no basis for it in what we signed on for.
Now, when, this is on my end of it, when they do get it up and running, do we get credited back for this? Because we have already paid, correct?
I believe, help me out if you can, Rick, there's a time period for that are we looking at a warranty or a service period? We don't want the clock to start ticking until this thing is operational.
Right, I mean, that's what I mean. They don't want them to be already
Right,
running
because
the clock.
the community sure isn't benefiting from it at this point.
Right.
My understanding is from the contract that the clock doesn't start ticking until we're actually up and on the air.
Right. They've had our
But
money
I
for
would like
quite a while,
to,
but
yeah, I will verify that from the time that we are up and on the air, that was 3 years out from that point, because it was a 3-year contract that we paid for.
But the sooner that 3 years starts ticking, because it's actually up, the better. And again, it's charter customers who'd benefit from that, and you would think they'd want to take care of their customers.
I also have another one here. I got quite a few calls on this one, and they want to know what's up with that tax increase that's on utility bills.
Yeah, I saw that same thing too. There was a sales tax on the utility bill that was never there before.
Sales tax only applies seasonally to electric, but it applies seasonally every year. And Brian, I don't know if you can speak to the months it's on or off, or Dave. Dave Buss, our finance director. But it comes on, it goes off each year. And I believe that's governed by statute. We didn't make it up, that's for sure.
I don't know if I can give you the exact dates, but basically, May through October is when it's on. And then during the winter, what I would call the winter months, it's not on there.
That's obviously a state sales tax, and
Yes.
and that is only on electric or electric
Correct.
water? It's only on electric. Okay, so it's nothing we made up. It's nothing to do with us. It goes to the state.
Yeah.
But I did hear that same complaint. I didn't hear from it, but I heard the Facebook chatter on it.
They got a big surplus. It'd be a good time if they wanted to look at changing it. But not our doing.
I got a couple more yet. Somebody messaged and wanted to know how long we're gonna have to look at that eyesore on Washington Street that they're starting to tear down, but it's kind of it's been looking terrible for months now. The old gas station.
Yep. All I can
Have you
say
been in
is
contact
as,
with them or?
yeah, as the council heard maybe 6-8 weeks ago from one of the principals there, Mr. Andrews, they ran into a structural issue that required demolition of over half of the building. I know they also had some asbestos abatement issues that have now been attended to. That's all I have at this point in time. They have an existing agreement with the city, of course, that requires certain investment by September 30th and project completion by the end of the year, calendar year.
And I got 3 phone calls on this one. People were really disappointed and they thought it was really quite disrespectful after everything that happened this weekend that we've continued on with Bands on the Beach this past weekend. One of them actually had said that they should stop the football game because somebody got hurt, where somebody actually died there. That a few people had thought that we should have probably canceled the Bands on the Beach because it was relatively disrespectful to the family.
I'm not going to say exact. I'll say what I think. I would say show goes on. It's a contracted event, and yes, something bad had happened, no doubt about it. But it's almost like, the football game is different because the players decided to cancel it. It wasn't the spectators that decided to cancel it. Where this was kind of just the opposite. The spectators were would have wanted it to probably go on versus the people involved. But the bands usually get contracted, and at least from my experience, whether they play or not, you pay that contract. At least that's how it works for events that I've booked them for.
I'd just say based on social media comments I've seen, which council members sometimes do reference as a basis for input for the public, there were a diversity of opinions on that, and out of respect to the whole situation, I'll at least know to not comment any further on it. There's a diversity of opinion.
It was just brought up to me, so I always
Yeah.
when people approach me, I bring it up, so. Okay, that's all I got.
There you go. Okay. Anybody else? I've got a couple. I did receive, and I think everyone received the email for the swim club. I think that was sent to everybody up here, so that is noted. We did get that. We did receive that. Property nuisance issues, including a person that illegally had a front yard garden that wasn't following any of the rules whatsoever. Was a problem there, and I was called in on Sunday. I got several emails, I should say, on beach safety, different concerns, whether it was a flag system, whether it was lifeguards, whether it was signage like we have at our downtown park. And then also I did get the call on Spectrum asking when that was going to get turned back on. I did email that off to Greg and said maybe we got to get our city attorney involved to take a look at our contract and see what he can't do to force Spectrum's hand because it's getting a little old. I'm sick of hearing it. I think everyone up here is sick of hearing it, whether you hear it yourselves or you hear it from other council members at every meeting, because the people are upset with it. It's getting kind of old, and something really has to get done to push them to get that Spectrum stuff done. Yeah, that's all I had. On to 8, council reports from boards, commissions, or committees. Anyone have anything they'd like to report on? Darla, go ahead.
For Main Street, just to remind everybody that on October 27th, which is on a Friday, it is Halloween weekend. So dress up for this. It is the Main Street Fall Wine Walk, Wine and Beer Walk. And that runs from 5 to 8:30. You can purchase tickets through the Two Rivers Main Street office on Washington Street. The other thing that they're gearing up for are Ethnic Fest, which is, hold on a second. I have the date. Greg, do you remember the date of that? I
Pulling it
should
up
know
right
it.
now. It's the third Saturday in September. Saturday, September 16th.
So, and they're still looking for some volunteers. And then the other thing too that we're looking at for this year is the Christmas Parade of Lights. We are expanding that to also be like a downtown light up the downtown type of thing too. And so Main Street is working with the electric department to see what we can come up with so that we could provide business owners with maybe a string of lights or something so that they could decorate their front windows, which would look pretty spectacular. When you have all that going on in the downtown, would really be nice. So that's kind of what's going on at this point.
On that same topic, I know, Greg, you had mentioned it before. Are we looking into what we can do to spruce up Christmas in Park 365?
Pretty early stages, but yes.
Okay.
We are planning to get something done over there.
Okay, because we should have a good hand in that too,
Yeah.
hopefully. Okay. Anybody else?
I would just mention you have several items on the consent agenda tonight that come from the Plan Commission meeting of last Monday as far as setting public hearings for 4 weeks out. It was pretty short turnaround time for minutes, so the minutes aren't on your agenda. When they are on the next regular agenda, there is also a recommendation relative to whether or not to extend the pilot program for front yard gardens. Plan Commission recommended against that, but they're purely advisory in that regard. That is a council decision. So that if you're wondering or aware of that decision, that's why that matter's not on tonight's agenda until we have the minutes. So that would be at the September 5 meeting. Yeah.
Anything else from anyone on boards, commissions, or committees? All right, seeing none. Greg, you're up.
Yes, first up, I'd like to invite Brian Delman, our Electric Utility Director, forward to introduce our guests tonight from the city's energy supplier, WPPI Energy.
Good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to introduce Mike Peters, who's the president and CEO of WPPI Energy. Mike's worked in our industry for over 30 years. He started with WPPI back in 2011. And he oversees the organization's leadership, strategic direction, and the day-to-day operations. He also serves on numerous boards and on boards of directors, such as the APPA Association, also on the board of directors for the American Transmission Company. So please welcome Mike Peters.
Thank you. That was very generous. I don't get a lot of clapping when I've gone to council members' meetings before, so I do appreciate that.
Take it when you can get it, Mike.
Exactly. I do appreciate getting some time on your agenda, and I use a PowerPoint presentation. This takes roughly 15 to 20 minutes to get through it, but I'm happy to stay and answer questions. I've stayed for up to an extra half hour, 45 minutes answering questions, so it's totally up to you what your interest is, but we'll use the slides to walk through some of the issues. Probably right off the bat, why should you care? As Greg said, we are your wholesale power supplier. So when a customer looks at their electric bill, 75 roughly percentage of that cost, 75% of that cost is the wholesale power cost and the related services that we provide. So it is a big chunk of the cost that your customers pay, and the city pays for city electric service. So that's the relationship between the distribution cost and the wholesale power piece that is part of those bills. As you all know, I think you know the history of WPPI. We were created in 1980. Prior to that, municipal utilities did not really have any options. Either they owned their own power supply resource, Manitowoc is a great example, or they bought from the investor-owned utility that surrounded the city. That was really the only option. Even if you could find another supplier that would provide service, you couldn't get transmission, and there was really no way to do that. So across the country, as prices started going up in the 70s, a lot of states stood up organizations like WPPI called joint action agencies, so municipals could band together and get economies of scale. Just to give you an idea, WPPI is about 1,000 megawatt utility collectively. Two Rivers, a little bit less than 20 megawatts. No one individual member of WPPI is more than 10%. So we're, collectively, we're a decent sized utility, about 210,000 electric meters when you combine all of the members of WPPI. That allows us, on your behalf, to own larger resources, to enter into bigger contracts. I think you guys know probably better than any of our members the contracts that we have with Point Beach, both for nuclear and for Point Beach Solar that just came online in 2021. Those are large-scale utility resources that not a single member of WPPI could have done on their own, but collectively we're able to do that and bring the economies of scale to all of our members. We have a 51-member board of directors. They meet 3 times a year, more often if necessary, but generally 3 times a year. But we also have, from that 51-member board, they elect an executive committee of 11 board members that meet every month, and sometimes more often than that. And they act like if you look at some of our city government, where you have a city council and you might have a utility commission that's more specialized, that's sort of the arrangement. We have a board of directors that makes the big decisions. They set our budget, they approve any they approve member contract issues, they set our wholesale rate, they approve us issuing debt. Those big issues that have a direct financial impact on the members are reserved for the full board. The operation of the utility is overseen by the executive committee, and I report to the executive committee. Going on to the next slide. We undertook an update to our long-term plan, our 5-year plan in 2021. And one of the things that stood out to us was we really wanted to emphasize to the members that you are the utility. We're here, we're in the background, we support your utility. Your customers know who you are. That's who they deal with. We're here to support you. When we looked at our mission and vision statement, we wanted to make sure that the members were in the top line, and that's some of the changes that we did. Fundamentally, it's the same, but it really helped us emphasize to our employees the relationship between you and your customers and us and the members. And we see ourselves as an extension of your staff, but definitely you're the utility, and we're here to support you. We have about 115 employees at WPPI, subject matter experts that in some regards have national recognition for the work they've done in various areas. And so really you have access to that staff. So as you know, Greg reaches out for anything, or Brian has an issue. We have staff that are subject matter experts that can step up and help with whatever that might be. Speaking of our long-term plan, this, as I said, we updated it in 2021. This covers a 5-year period from 22 to 26. We actually sat down with members. We had member roundtables. We had 11 different meetings. Most every one of our members were represented in those meetings, really trying to understand what are the challenges you see in your communities over the next 5 years from a utility standpoint. What role do you see WPPI playing in supporting your utilities? Where is the industry going? And then from that, we developed this 5-year plan. Each year, then we look at what are we going to try and accomplish in that given year in order to further the business plan over that time period. A couple of things stood out for this year. Long-term resource planning. We are in a pretty good shape as far as not having to add any long-term resource in the next few years. But starting in 2028, 29, 30, and really into 31, 32, 33, we're going to have a lot of needs. We're going to have a lot of open space. And so we're starting today to look at what our power supply portfolio should look like between now and 2050. And we're really good at projecting our load requirements. That's going to become more of a challenge as you see more EVs and more electric demand picking up. We don't control that, obviously, but as that increases throughout our systems, that'll have some impact. On the other side, rooftop solar is going to have an impact. Again, we'll talk a little bit about that in another slide, how that's impacted where we're going on a resource standpoint. The other area I did touch on is rooftop solar. We pulled together, we've gone in 5 years, we had about 300 rooftop solar systems connected throughout the 210,000 meters. We're up to about 1,300 today, and it's growing exponentially. We have some members that have over a couple of hundred rooftop solar systems on their electric meters on their houses. For some communities, it's become a lot, it's taken up a lot of their staff time. Just customer inquiries about rooftop solar takes up a lot of staff time. So we put together a group of our members, developed a best practices manual so that we could help streamline that process, standardize that process. And now we're looking at, can we automate that process? Can we put an online portal so that you can direct your customers to get information, look at rate comparisons, fill out forms, schedule inspections, et cetera, and then keep that information up to date, like insurance requirements for homeowners that have rooftop solar. If a house gets sold, does the new customer know they have to provide the same kind of information, that type of thing. For some communities, it's not a big deal, but as more and more we see a higher penetration of rooftop solar, it's going to become more of an issue going forward. Any questions on where we're at from a planning standpoint?
If you have rooftop solar, how does that affect you as a, because you want to make a profit too.
Actually, we don't.
No, but I mean, what I mean is you don't want to
Yeah.
run out of work.
I don't think we'll ever run out of work, just like I don't think you'll ever run out of work. From our standpoint, we're not for profit, tax exempt, just like you. So we're not in it for the profit. We're in it to provide this service and cover our cost. As we see an increase in rooftop solar, we adjust our wholesale portfolio. We know that we'll need less energy because we have customers that are providing some of that energy. It'd be no different than if we had a large customer in Kaukauna that got access to a 50 megawatt generator within their paper mill. Before that, they didn't have that. Then they had it. Kaukauna just reduced the sales to that customer, which means then we reduced what we needed to make sure we had available to serve Kaukauna and that customer. So we will adjust our portfolio going forward as we see more of these rooftop solar. So we have to account for it in our planning. It's just going to be something that we won't be providing. Obviously, those customers are still going to need you. They're still going to need us because the sun doesn't shine all the time. So I've got a slide back here that actually shows some of the impact of the change in solar. Good question. Let's talk about probably the number one issue from a member standpoint is cost. I can tell you we were on a really good trajectory. We had seen actually declining cost. From if you go back to 2010 all the way up to about 2018 and 2019, our costs were actually going down pretty significantly, pretty linear down. In 2020, that was an interesting year for all of us. But going into 2021, we really saw some anomalies. We saw gas prices in the summer of 21 start to climb significantly more than we anticipated. From prior years, we project what gas is going to cost, which dictates what the cost is for wholesale electricity in the open markets. And we still buy from wholesale power supply markets. And so when natural gas prices go up, wholesale electricity prices go up, and therefore we see higher cost. And so in June of 2020, gas prices started escalating pretty significantly, as much as 50% above what we had anticipated they were and what in years past they looked like. And so going in, we finished the year in 2021 above budget. because of that issue. So going into 2022, we just assumed that gas prices would stay pretty consistent to what they were in December of 21. But most of the industry predicted that gas prices would drop in April after the first quarter. You come out of winter, you're not burning gas to generate electricity, you're not putting gas into storage. And so April, we anticipated gas prices would drop and then go back to a normal. We were wrong. Gas prices, our budget assumed a drop, but they actually went even higher. We saw gas prices and wholesale electric market prices in 21, 100% above budget. Fortunately, the way our portfolio is built, the actual cost impact, even though market energy was 100% above budget, we were running 10% above budget. So if you think about being fully exposed to the market, would have been a 100% increase. We were about 8 to 10% increase. So going into 2023, obviously we broke out the crystal ball. It was still very cloudy. We anticipated, well, gas prices would just remain high, just like they were in 2022. We were wrong again, but this time in the right way. Gas prices plummeted in January back to prices, in the below $3 range. And to give you a reference, in 21 and 22, they were up to $7 to $8. And so they really dropped significantly back to what we expected in 2018, 2019. So we're right now running 10% below budget for 2023. We'll have to break out the crystal ball again for 24. There really isn't a good indication of what direction they'll go. We actually retained marketing experts when we developed our budget in 23. We paid for analysis from people who make their living betting on the gas markets and operating market energy companies. And so even with that quote best information, we were still somewhat off. From our standpoint, our resource mix, just because you can't guess exactly what's going to happen in any one fuel, we look for diversity. We have diversity in fuel, and we also have diversity in the location of our resources. And so no one individual generator represents more than 10% of our capacity. And so we don't have everything sunk into one type of resource. But if you look at our fuel mix in 2010 to 2022, you can see a continuing shrinking of our dependence on coal. That's our fuel mix, and increased in natural gas and renewables. We're about 25% renewable. When you add in Point Beach Nuclear, we're about 45% carbon free. And we anticipate that's going to continue, especially in 2030 and 2035. When the coal fire, we have interest in 3 different coal units. All 3 of those, 2 of them are at Elm Road. WEPCO runs that plant. And then the other is Boswell in Minnesota, ran by Minnesota Power. Both of those owners have indicated they're going to convert them to natural gas starting in 2030. So we'll see a significant drop again from a coal standpoint. So by 2035, we'll have very little coal in our resource mix at that point. Point Beach Nuclear, that 20%, that is all Point Beach Nuclear. So 20% of our energy is coming out of Point Beach Nuclear.
Love our nuclear plant, you know that. And the jobs it provides.
Exactly. It's a great resource. They are, NextAir out of Florida is indicated they are planning to relicense that plant. The license comes up in 2030 and 2033. There's 2 units there. They have indicated they're going to relicense the plant. They've already talked to us about extending our contract another 20 years, and we'll continue to work with them. Hopefully we'll be able to do that, but it's still early in the process. The next page just shows from a pictorial representation of where all of our assets are located. Pretty diverse, 4 states. We obviously have customers, mostly Wisconsin, but also in the UP of Michigan and in Iowa. But we have resources in Minnesota and Illinois and Iowa. So let's, I think this next one probably, this community, as many others, more than any others, understand the impact of Point Beach Solar. You got the benefit of probably some economic development or economic impact when it was being constructed. There's still some jobs associated with that plant as well as Point Beach Nuclear. We are on track to reduce our carbon emissions by 45% by 2025. As I said, we'll be 45% carbon free by that point. We're also very active from a policy standpoint. Our last 2 resources were renewable. Point Beach Solar came online in 21, And then prior to that, we added 132 megawatts of wind in northern Illinois, and that came online in 2017. Both of those were selected because of the economics as much as anything else. We really look to balance not just the environmental side, but the economic side and the reliability piece. It is truly all three we look at. We did an RFP. We needed to add some resources, long-term resources. We went out and asked for proposals. We received 60 to 70 different proposals, including natural gas and other fossil fuel type resources. But these two resources came out as the most economic and fit our needs the best. The added benefit that they were carbon free was fantastic. But we really strive to make the decisions and balance all three: economics, reliability, and the environmental aspects of it. The next chart, our picture shows some of the challenges, though. This is nothing that's new from a utility standpoint. We knew this was an issue, but I think pictorially it really does show the challenges that we have. So I asked our staff to pull together. This is from Point Beach Solar. This is the actual output of the plant based on meter data that we get, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So they pulled 3 different days, all of them in the month of June of last summer. That first day, sunny day, it ramped up very quickly as the sun rose. It ran at 100% across the day, no cloud cover that day, and then it just dropped off as the sun set. So fantastic energy resource that day. That bottom line is a cloudy day. Same month of June, very cloudy, probably rain most of that day. We got very little output, almost no energy out of that plant all day long. It was almost at zero. And then just at the end of the day there, it kind of peaked up a little bit. We got a little bit of electricity. And then in the middle is, looks like a guy having a heart attack. That was an intermittent cloud cover day. You guys know what that's like. Clouds come in, roll out. That just ramps up and down all day long. Your load as a municipal utility does not look like that. It's a nice bell curve. It ramps up nice, peaks out about 4, 5, 6 o'clock, and then starts coming back down. We know that we cannot keep the lights on if this is our only resource. Solar alone will not keep the lights on. We need other resources. We need dispatchable resources, especially resources that can follow that requirement of that up and down real spiky stuff. It's probably going to be natural gas for quite some time. Eventually, I think batteries are going to play a part, where batteries can be, standing by and can discharge very quickly, ramp up, ramp down very quickly. But it's got to be something more than just solar. That next page shows the seasonal difference between winter and summer with that same Point Beach Solar output. Same sunny day in June, and then a sunny day in January of this year. And you can see, obviously, the day is shorter, so you don't get as much of an output. And also the intensity, the sun's UV rays, not as intense, and so you get less output just from that alone. That little dip in the day is actually the sun's orientation to the solar panels is different in the winter than it is in the summer. And so it actually creates a little bit of a spike just because of the way the sun's oriented to those panels. So you have a little bit of a dip in generation starting from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. So interesting. But again, we can't rely simply on solar to keep the lights on. And then I asked staff to look at a wind, one of our wind resources, same thing. They selected 3 days in May of this year. Windy day, nice output, still a little variable, but pretty much at its max of 50 megawatts. Intermittent windy day, and then a calm day. And so you can imagine if you had a cloudy day with no wind, we'd have a problem if we had wind and solar as only resources. So from a utility standpoint, this isn't anything we didn't know, but I think when you show these, there's a common misperception that you can just simply take your coal and natural gas offline and add more solar, add more wind, and you've got it covered. That's not the case. So we know we're on track and we're looking at being carbon neutral by 2050. Fortunately, that's about 26 years away. We need advancements in technology. We need small modular reactors, nuclear energy. We need perhaps carbon capture so that we can keep some fossil fuel generation that can ramp up very quickly, but we can capture the carbon. We need battery technology that can be longer duration, not just 4 hours, but more days. And so we need that advancements in technology if we hope to be able to continue to operate the system, but do so economically. So lots to do in the coming months and years ahead. The last slide there, keeping costs down. I can tell you that our staff looks for every penny possible to reduce cost. We were able to do a debt refinancing. We actually executed the transaction in May of last year. We were able to lock in savings for our members. We actually closed on that transaction in April of this year, but we refinanced about $112 million worth of debt. We did so at an interest rate of less than 3%, and we're saving our members about $1.7 million a year in debt service costs, which obviously every penny that we save, we pass right down to our member communities. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. We have our annual meeting coming up in September. It'd be great to see some of you there. I know Brian will be there, and perhaps Craig as well. But I appreciate, and obviously having council members and attend those meetings is a good opportunity for you to learn more about WPPI and the relationship that we have with you. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes.
I mean, I'll start off by saying I'm not a big fan of WPPI. I find you guys to be a little too expensive. But it looks like natural gas and coal are our cheapest. And we saw that last year when the coal plants came off the market, and I think it was summer, and our peak rates went way up. And as we diminish that coal, that is going to affect us more and more and more as time goes on. And we have a lot of poverty in this community. We talk about it all the time, and people that can't afford to pay their bills. You know, being carbon free and all that's great, but we got to find a way to get the prices down.
I wouldn't argue with you.
And
economics is really where we do make our decisions. That does drive our decisions. As far as the expense for WPPI, we do cost comparisons with other wholesale power suppliers. We are amongst the lowest in the region from a wholesale power supply standpoint. Comparing retail rates is very difficult, and I know you often get compared to Manitowoc.
Yep.
That it's an apples and oranges comparison. They're 5 times larger from a utility standpoint. They have that many more kilowatt hours. They have a lot more industrial sales than what Two Rivers has. It'd be like, you know, comparing anything else between Manitowoc and Two Rivers. It really is a difficult comparison. From a wholesale standpoint, it's not that different. From a generation standpoint, from an energy cost standpoint, the renewables that we picked in 2017 and in 2020 were actually low cost options compared to natural gas. And so we did look at natural gas as an option instead of those 2 renewable resources. But the renewable resources on a long-term operating basis were cheaper. And so we obviously picked it based on the economics. We got the environmental benefit, but we picked it based on economics. The decisions to change the coal plants to natural gas are out of our hands. We have no control over that decision. WEPCO, we own an 8 1/3% of Elm Road. So we have an 8 1/3% input. Really, we have none. WEPCO has already made the decision to convert to natural gas. They're making investments to do that. We're going to go along for the ride because we don't have a choice. Same thing with Minnesota Power and Boswell. They've already decided they're going to convert it from coal to something probably natural gas. Again, we'll go along for that. We are looking at, do we have other options? Can we sell our interest back to them? We're way out we're many years away from them being interested in doing that and us being in a position to do that. But we'll look for options going forward. Is there something that makes more sense, and do we have other options? It's like we own it. I mean, we still owe money on it. We have debt that goes out to 2037 on both plants. But from a decision-making standpoint, we're not making the decision to convert these from coal. If it truly were up to WPPI, we would not make that conversion. Those 3 plants are fantastic. They have a very good dispatch cost, very competitive, real workhorses as far as we're concerned. And so we would keep those plants as coal, but it's not our decision.
And I can appreciate that. I'm just, you know, we do get compared to Manitowoc, whether it's apples or oranges or not. They're our neighbor right there. There's nothing. It's Two Rivers, Manitowoc, boom, you're there. And we get compared to them a lot. And I mean, if it was up to me 100%, I mean, I would be buying our power from them if I could, because they are way cheaper.
would be that much lower because it's not just the power, the wholesale piece that's different, that causes the difference in your rates. It's also the retail piece. And that part of it is because they've got, 35,000 citizens and you've got significant, it's 3 times larger from a meter standpoint, but it's 5 times larger from an energy sales standpoint. They have a lot of industrial load that you don't have. So they have a much higher load factor. So their costs are going to be lower. Be like within the WPPI system, we do rate comparisons across all of our members and we stack them up from low to high. Our lowest cost at the retail level is Menasha, but they have the highest concentration of industrial customers. Same wholesale power supply rate, but the wholesale bill is less because of their load. Their load profile results in them having a lower wholesale cost. It would be no different than if you bought from Manitowoc, if they even could provide service to you. So you cannot look at Manitowoc and say, well, if we bought from Manitowoc, we'd have lower rates. You may, but you're more likely not. You're probably going to have rates that are pretty comparable to what you have today. It'd be like comparing living in Manitowoc versus living in Two Rivers. You're going to make decisions based on a lot of things, not just what's the electric rate.
Yep, just going on what I hear from citizens that own property in both.
It's a complicated issue to explain, and I get it when a customer says, I've got a relative in Manitowoc and their bill is this and my bill is that. I get that, but it's, I think Brian and Greg, they understand the differences and we try to educate our commissions and councils on it. It really is apples and oranges. Yes, we recognize that some utilities are going to have lower cost, but it's not just simply because, there's a lot of factors that go into that. So.
Anybody else?
I'm with you. I agree.
I want to ask you, you said something about nuclear. And do you see in the future that is nuclear a lower cost option? Do you see maybe us going in that direction?
The Point Beach nuclear, that existing nuclear, we want it to stay online. I can't tell you it's a low cost option compared to other things, but it's a great resource. It just runs, and we need that kind of baseload energy resources. What I was referencing from a new technology standpoint, they're called small modular reactors. And it's a new type of nuclear technology using sort of the same technology as Point Beach, but putting it in a smaller scale and then having multiple units on one site. And the technology that we've taken a hard look at, we signed a non-disclosure agreement with the developer. There was a number of utilities, all the investor-owned utilities in Wisconsin, plus Dairyland Power, and a number of utilities in Minnesota got together. We've looked at this technology, and they would be a 12 units on one site, smaller. And you could keep this site running all the time while you're refueling one unit every 5 years. You're sequencing, doing a sequential refueling. But it's just a way of using the existing technology, but doing it on a smaller scale and safer. It's all gravity fed. It's not pumped. So if you had to shut it down, you can cool it very effectively without worrying about, an outage. The issue is cost. It's new technology. There's not a unit built anywhere, not only in the US, but in the country. It is licensed. There's a joint action agency like WPPI that's in Utah. Utah Municipal Joint Action Agency. They actually have a contract to build the first one of these, but they're getting a 50% subsidy from the DOE. And so when you pull that subsidy out and look at the cost right now, we've stepped away and we'll keep an eye on that technology. It's going to get cheaper. Just like everything else in the utility industry, there's a price curve, and it usually starts pretty high and starts coming down. Solar has dropped 90 some odd % from what it was 20 years ago. Batteries will follow that same kind of a declining price curve. We're hoping that this technology at some point can be cost competitive with what maybe natural gas or even coal is today. It's not there yet.
I have another question. You're talking about batteries a lot. Would that help if we have a lot of load battery stations located in our area? Would that help us keep our costs down too?
Probably not initially, because we've actually we look at it from what we'll go out. We just did a request for proposals within the last month. We're actually going to share the findings with our executive committee at a meeting we have this week. We had a number of counterparties that gave us proposals to provide capacity, which is the ability to generate. No energy interest, just having the ability to generate if we need it. One of the proposals with batteries, it was significantly higher than any other proposal. So it's technology that works, but from a cost standpoint, not quite there yet. But I think in the coming years, it'll continue to decline in cost. It will be value. Other things that battery can do, like that, following the load shape of, or the generation shape, the capacity shape of a solar, you need something to fill in all those, those ups and downs, and a battery can do that. And so pairing a battery with solar is a viable option that's happening in a lot of parts of the country, just not in this part of the country, from an economic standpoint.
Bonnie, I saw your hand up just before.
Oh, well, I am a fan of WPPI. And one of the benefits, and I can't explain it well because it's very difficult to explain to our customers why it's beneficial for our small city to be in a co-op. And some of it is if we have needs, nothing is expensive if you have to fix something. And it's my understanding that you help with that in loans and things. And if you want to compare our bill, you should compare it to a customer of Manitowoc City, not to Manitowoc City. The people who live in Manitowoc City will get more of a benefit from them than their customers will. Does that make sense to you? I mean, they sell to other cities. It's not just.
Yeah, when we look at, when you do a cost comparison of Two Rivers to a comparably sized municipal utility in the state of Wisconsin, you're very competitive. You're very comparable to a utility similar in size to Two Rivers, similar in load profile to Two Rivers. You really cannot compare Two Rivers to Manitowoc, or you could not compare Two Rivers to Menasha. Again, you look at their load profile, their industrial customer mix, and it's like comparing, buying a commodity from Walmart versus a privately owned single hardware store in a small town. You're going to get a cheaper price at a volume discount. That's really part of it. It works in the utility industry, just like it works in other commodities or just any goods and services. When you compare a high volume, a high load to a smaller entity, you're going to pay more for that smaller entity at the retail side. But from a wholesale standpoint, WPPI is extremely competitive at a wholesale standpoint.
Anybody else? Questions? Tim?
How did Kewaunee use all the permits they had for reactors? Could they put some of them new ones like you were talking about out there?
It's probably a location that, could be utilized in the future. Absolutely. We're talking from a standpoint, like I'm more familiar with Point Beach. They've got about 700 acres of property surrounding the plant that's fenced in, secured, and everything else. The small modular reactor needs a footprint of about 50 acres. So it's a much smaller footprint. So yes, you could take the transmission interconnection that they have at Kewaunee. You could take some land that they have there. You could probably put something on that site at some point in the future, most likely. But that'll come. It's a matter of when. So.
Anybody else before we kick this back to the rest of the report?
Just to comment, I guess, briefly, as far as Mike mentioned earlier, rooftop solar out there. Understand, we also just recently had occasion to get an inquiry from a local business. And Tom Bolt, our energy services manager from WPPI, we're very glad to have. He's funded through WPPI and serves jointly Two Rivers, Plymouth, and New Holstein, working with our customers, and especially our commercial, industrial, institutional customers, on ways to reduce the bills they pay to our utility, which, among other things. But it's not just about wanting to be green for the sake of it. We're hearing from companies whose customers are demanding it, they're expecting it, And it's become a big part of corporate culture and business decision-making. We know we have individual residential customers that want to see more green, or excuse me, whatever the right term is, more renewables in the mix of energy. So it's gone well beyond, oh, the government is saying you got to do this, and it's a very real economic factor. And we hope we can help a lot of our local businesses implement that. So it's good stuff. And then another, just to throw in, while we're making apples to oranges comparisons, we could be mighty glad that we have a municipal utility and are not served with the rates that apply at least to customers nearby who are in WPS territory, or honestly in We Energy's territory, because we do compare very favorably to those rates. So, but that's apples and oranges too. But what the heck? I'll throw it out.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay.
Are you going to kick it over to the chiefs?
Yes, actually, at this point, if both chiefs could come forward, Chief Murak and Chief Minert, I'd ask them if they could speak briefly to the tragic accident, the drowning in Lake Michigan, off or near Neshota Beach this past weekend, and welcome both Chief Minert and Chief Murak.
All right, obviously you guys saw the press release that I put out. I'll just say there's not a whole lot that I'm going to say beyond that. From that standpoint, it is still under investigation, and it was a juvenile involved, so there's not a whole lot that I'd be releasing. Aside from that, this was a tragedy, by all means. I can say that we can speculate as to the reasons. There was a beach hazard, so we can speculate as to the reasons why. We can kind of second guess what else could have been done preliminary, prior to this. I know Facebook chatter, like you had mentioned, talks about things from years ago. We can definitely look at those things, and we have. So already this morning, we were on the phone with each other. Well, really right after the incident, I was still on scene talking with our city manager about the signage that is in place currently. There is signage about rip currents, for instance. Whether or not that can be improved. I talked to people at the beach about that. Again, it's still speculation as to whether that was exactly what happened. But I think clearly there were currents that were unsafe and unfavorable. So that's something we talked about. We had further meetings with Park and Rec and the city manager today about signage. People have talked about signage, flagging systems, things along those lines, all the way up to, an excessive amount that it might cost for lifeguards. I'm not saying one way is right or wrong. I'm not saying all those things could have been in place right now and we wouldn't still be talking about a tragedy, but it's definitely something that we have to talk about for improvement moving forward. I will say, this is one of those things where all the resources were available that we needed. We had all the people there. We had the right professionals making the right calls. And this isn't what any of us hope for an outcome. Like I said, I was there to see the efforts put in place. And it's unfortunate. It really is. It's not something that you look forward to in this career at any point. So does anybody have any questions for me? I'll turn it over to the fire chief.
Yes, I would echo what Chief Minert said as far as from the perspective of the fire department. First and foremost, our heartfelt condolences go out to the family, friends, and anyone connected with this tragedy. I would echo that. We would never want there to be an expectation that this would happen in our city and in our beach. It's a truly tragic incident. What I know is the intergovernmental agencies work together very well, and we're able to get the victim out of the water and get them to the hospital, even though the result was not what we intended, but the system worked to mitigate the problem, take care of it. Moving forward, if anyone has any questions, comments, or concerns, you can call my cell or you can call me at the department, and I'll discuss anything you want within reason, considering it's still under investigation.
Thanks, gentlemen, and to thank you honestly to all of the emergency service providers that had a unified response. Obviously, going forward, when it comes to increased public education and enhancing public awareness of systems like the National Weather Service's beach hazard warnings that are already out there, I think we need to look at how we build on those and increase public awareness of those in our community.
I just want to mention that there is a GoFundMe page. And if you go out on the internet, you just, actually, I think Sea Hafer News has information on it and the HTR. Because I know there was interest from the public that they wanted to donate towards the finances for this.
Part of the family.
boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it is out there. Something's been started.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In the way of staffing updates, the assessment center was completed last week for the acting captain designation in the fire department. Also, interviews have been completed for the vacancy for full-time firefighter paramedic, and there is a recommended hire identified who will be presented for action by the Police and Fire Commission at a meeting this Thursday, August 24th. Public Works, we are still seeking a maintenance worker, and that application deadline is this week, Friday, the 25th. Pleased to say that in the police department, we have a new hire, Santos Torres Zapian. He is currently attending Law Enforcement Academy at Wausau Technical College, scheduled for graduation in mid-December. Had a chance to meet him last week when he was in for his swearing in and for introductions. And we look forward to having him serving the community actively and getting his field orientation, field training in mid-December. We'll be sure to introduce Santos at that time. Lincoln Street reconstruction, this year's major street reconstruction. As you've probably seen or heard at previous meetings, the mainline concrete paving is completed. That work by Vinton as subcontractor to Mammoth, the general contractor. Work on intersections, sidewalk replacement, which is intermittent due to utilities or bad sidewalk squares, is underway, and sidewalk ramps and driveway approaches are being installed. We, as we've reported previously, expect completion by Labor Day, with the possible exception of restoration of the terrace areas with topsoil and seeding. Last week, I expect some of you had an opportunity to attend. I know our council rep to the library board, Tracy Coach, was there. Others may have as well. It was the dedication of the new story walks at Leicester Public Library and Zander Park. First off, a huge thank you to the West Foundation for the Director's Choice Imagining Grant. There were 2 awarded. You might recall over 50 applications submitted from all over the county, And one of the 2 grants awarded was to our Leicester Library Foundation for this project. And kudos also to our library staff, Parks and Rec staff, Public Works, and Utilities for their great work at both locations. The story walk at the library with 20 individual stations winds along the Patrick Gagnon Memorial Path that goes through the library grounds. And over at Zander Park, it's really good when you got a wet spot to have boardwalks and stones to walk on and wetland plants that will be going in to landscape the area. There was a great turnout at both locations, and a lot of imagination shown in how the project is being implemented. We expect there'll be a whole lot of enjoyment of these story walks at both locations. Great project. Was glad to see some representatives of the West Foundation board there, our Leicester Library Board and Foundation. This is what community is about, and very well executed. Also, this council has supported in this year's capital budget a new major destination playground at Neshota Park being installed on what was the infield of the old ball field there. Here's a couple of progress photos with the forms going in for the concrete sidewalk that winds around the playground area, which will all have poured in place resilient surfacing installed. We're still expecting Northland play equipment to be in here to install the Little Tykes commercial brand play equipment in September. And Mike Mathis, our Parks and Rec director, advised today that looks like the dedication event will occur Saturday morning, October 7th. So given a tailwind, a little luck, and what we anticipate as a schedule. So mark your calendars for that and watch for more details coming. Nice project, big investment in quality of life, especially for families with young children. Last council meeting, Andrew Sukawati, our water utility manager, director, reported to council on several things, including recent results of testing for PFAS. And this is just a copy of a posting that's now out on the water utility website. Information that in this very form is going out in the next round of utility bill newsletters that go out to members of the community. And we will also post it on Facebook tomorrow for both the city and the utilities. But kind of cutting to the chase on this, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services has developed a PFAS hazard index, as Andrew reported at the last meeting. You can take the test results you get for various PFAS-related compounds that are tested for in our drinking water, and of 18, there were 6 detected at low levels in Two Rivers Lake Michigan water that comes in through the intake pipe. Those all go into this hazard index calculator that the Department of Health Services has put together, and they indicate that you should be concerned if your hazard index thus calculated is 1.0 or higher. The calculated index for Two Rivers point to get your glasses on 0.268. So that's only about a quarter of the level of concern. So that reflects the current state of the art as far as regulation and health concerns on PFAS. We know this is an evolving area. It's a forever chemical, as they say, ubiquitous in our environment, given all of the different used as for, for nonstick cooking, for waterproofing of clothing and other fabrics, fireproofing and other things. So we're not done hearing about PFAS, but in terms of existing guidelines, EPA and Wisconsin Department of Public Health, we're well within the parameters and seeing results that are very comparable to other surface water utilities around Wisconsin. Explore Two Rivers, Inc., our area tourism organization, supported with room tax funds collected by the city, took advantage of the opportunity. Brian Dean, tourism director, was invited by the Travel Wisconsin to staff a booth at the Wisconsin Products Pavilion at the State Fair. This was on the last day of the State Fair last week, Sunday, and they had a very, very good response to the various Two Rivers attractions and events that were on display, shared some video of the community, and also there was a basket of Two Rivers related products and gear that was made available. And the person was from the Milwaukee area. Good exposure at the State Fair, and I think pretty good response because the opportunity came up without a lot of advance notice. Brian and some volunteers dropped everything and spent their Sunday down at State Fair Park. We, as Mr. Dean has reported previously, Explore Two Rivers has contracted for time, 6 seconds each minute in a rotating cycle with other advertisers on a large digital billboard located along northbound I-43 south of Sheboygan. So folks headed north in that stretch see displays on various local events and attractions. That went into play sometime in July and will be continuing to promote Two Rivers. Councils have any interest in seeing specific types of events or activities promoted or have questions, I encourage you to be in touch with Mr. Dean. He's happy to meet with you. And likewise, I'm sure his board officers would be happy as well. But they're off to the races, and obviously always the opportunity for improvement.
I've driven past a couple times going back and forth from work. I work down in the Sheboygan area. It's nice looking.
Kind of grabs your eye.
Yes.
Yeah. Just another update, maybe things you've heard before about our Sandy Bay Highlands Conservation Subdivision. Some really nice homes going up there, keeping folks employed in the local construction trades and providing housing in Two Rivers for people in some cases that already live here and want a new home, or people that are lucky enough to be moving to Two Rivers. Seen some good sales activity, met with the company that's built a couple of spec homes just today, and they're going to be breaking ground shortly for another spec home at the subdivision. Very eager to know, as are several prospective buyers we've heard from, and our realtor Amy Townsend has heard from, about what's coming possibly in phase 3 I would note that we've gotten some of the answers, most of the answers we need from DNR for planning for the next phase. So based on the council's prior authorization for design funding, McMahon Associates has been given the go-ahead to begin more intensive design work for phase 3. And again, that would include a northerly extension of Orchard Lane up at least to be able to accommodate that east-west cul-de-sac that is shown there. That would yield 12 to 13 new lots. The intent is, rather than building major new stormwater pond at considerable expense, to direct drainage initially to some man-made biofilters, but then ultimately discharging to wetlands on the site. I still left Matt's mark up here, but the red note at the top there basically says you can't be discharging directly to the natural wetlands on the site. However, it is possible to discharge to the areas where we show biofilters and man-made filtration systems. We hope to be in a position to bid out the phase 3 utility and grading and graveling work on the roads this fall for spring construction. Obviously, we need to bring budget numbers back to city council and get approval for that. But the subdivision is meeting the goals, at least in the single family area that this council has had for new tax base and opportunities that aren't being met otherwise in the community. We aren't socialists here, but the city developed subdivision is frankly the best option available in Two Rivers right now for new housing. And we're hearing from builders countywide, there just aren't new lots coming on the market. I think we all know why, given the cost of developing, but eager to see this area continue to grow and develop in a prudent way that does respect the environment. So, any questions on that? Matt could certainly.
Does the city already own that next phase?
Yes.
The land?
Yeah, the city, when we first went into this, the city owned the so-called College Hill property since the 1960s. It was 63 acres altogether. Early on, 7 or 8 acres got added to Picnic Hill Park and zoned conservancy, and the balance of about 56 acres comprises what is the subdivision. It had been owned by the city, like I say, since the 1960s, and in the 1990s, the city council and I decided, since UW Manitowoc had located where it was probably time for a plan B. And that's where the subdivision idea came about.
And then on the previous, or on all the lots that are there already, after all infrastructure was put in, lots were sold, did the city make any money on any of it?
We did not make any profit on the lot sales, no. And I think we have to have our eyes wide open going into the future phases. What's the pricing structure to recover costs? And honestly, we had some discussion with the developer today. We need to be more aggressive on what the city asks because everything else has gone up. And but on the other hand, I think and it's up to the council. We've had discussions. If you get new homes built there that let's say average 350 or 400,000 in assessed value, is it worth subsidizing? I couldn't find a prettier word to say right now, but is it worth providing support for that development to the tune that gets recouped in 4 or 5 years once a house of that value gets built versus saying, no, we're not going to do that. And at the end of 5 years, still having nothing. So that's a policy discussion yet to be had. But honestly, lots in this phase are going to have to come in somewhere north of $50,000 for the numbers to make any sense at all. So that's that. Stay tuned for more discussion as we proceed toward budget or even before the whole budget is presented. We would note on behalf of the Two Rivers Historical Society and all of the great things they do that they are again doing a Furniture for Funds fundraiser. We've got a really cool Two Rivers chair that I was lucky enough to be the high bidder on 2 years ago, the first time they did this. They've got a whole bunch. They show a Badger-themed chair here, and then some of Dean Conop's amazing artwork with a Harry Potter-themed chair. There's going to be some really cool offerings. That's on Saturday of Ethnic Festival. Silent auction over at Washington House on Jefferson Street. You can go put your bid in, go get some food at Ethnic Festival, come back, see how you made out. You might have to up your bid, but would encourage you, and there's some very cool offerings this year. Would remind you, we got another concert in the park coming up. The Two Rivers Community Band presents highlights of 2023 this week, Thursday night, the 24th. There will be some food vendors, beverages, and of course the crafters and farmers market in Central Park East. Our friends out at the Vanderbro Arboretum are doing their second annual, I believe, second time they've done a garden crawl out there with wine, appetizers, and music by groups from the Manitowoc Symphony Orchestra that'll be playing at various locations on the grounds, and refreshments available at each of the 9 Franciscan gardens. Encourage you to attend and support this beautiful development in our community. And even if you haven't recently, I know we had a special council meeting out there last year. If you get a chance, go out and walk the grounds of the Arboretum. It's pretty amazing. Mr. Durbrow and the board out there, they not only have a vision, but they're making it happen. One more Bands on the Beach concert scheduled for this summer. Big Mouth and the Power Tool Horns next Sunday, August 27th at 2 p.m. 9-piece band gets rave reviews. Encourage folks to turn out, gather with your friends and neighbors for the last Bands on the Beach for this year. Remind you again, every week there's a fresh 2 Minutes with Two Rivers that's broadcast on Thursdays on WOMT and FM 98.1. That is FM. The Lake. And it is then posted on City Hall Facebook and the Explore Two Rivers Facebook page. Maybe other places that I don't know about. Explore Two Rivers website with a timely update on activities for the coming week. So that's my report. We close with a beautiful picture of some of the gardens in one of the volunteer-tended gardens along Mariners Trail. And I would note, and I've got to see that we post a link on our Facebook page. Last week on August 16th, Channel 26 out of Green Bay did a nice feature report on the 50 volunteer-tended gardens out on the trail. That's my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. On to 10, which is the consent agenda. Under A, we have a presentation of minutes. There are 1. It's a city council meeting of August 7th, 2023. The recommended action is a motion to waive reading and adopt the minutes. Under B, minutes of meeting, there are 8. We have a Leicester Public Library meeting of July 11th, 2023. Public Utilities Committee meeting of August 7th, 2023. The Plan Commission meeting, May 8th, 2023. Committee on Aging, May 1st and June 5th, 2023. Explore Two Rivers Board of Directors, June 7th, 2023. Community Development and Business Industrial Development, May 23rd and July 11th, 2023. Advisory Rec Board meeting of July 12th, 2023, and an Environmental Advisory Board meeting of July 18th, 2023. Recommended action is a motion to receive and file. Under C, application for new landscape/tree removal license recommended for approval. We have 1, Stengel's Handyman Service LLC, 3315 Parkway Boulevard in Two Rivers. The recommended action is a motion to approve the application and authorize the city clerk to issue the license. Under D, department reports for July 2023, there are 11. The recommended action is a motion to receive and file. Under E, summary of verified bills for the month of June 2023, $1,832,858.78. Recommended action is a motion to receive and file. Under F, review of conditional use application for the housing of a raptor, a red-tailed hawk, as a conditional use at 1033 27th Street. Applicant Alexander Darren. Recommended action is a motion to schedule the public hearing for September 18th, 2023 at 6 p.m. as recommended by the Plan Commission's meeting on August 14th, 2023. Under G, review of conditional use application for flea market use in the Industrial Use District I-1 as a conditional use, corner of 12th Street and Monroe Street, applicant Dean Jacobson. Recommended action is a motion to schedule public hearing for September 18th, 2023 at 6 p.m. as recommended by the Plan Commission meeting on August 14th, 2023. Typo under H. Item H is to amend the sign code ordinance to permit short-term rentals to have 1 sign. Oh, I thought you were saying something. I'm sorry. The recommended action is a motion to schedule, is that a public hearing, Greg?
It is.
Okay, a motion to schedule a public hearing for September 18th, 2023 at 6 PM as recommended by the Plan Commission meeting on August 14th, 2023. The recommendation for the consent agenda as a whole is a motion to approve the consent agenda with the various actions recommended. Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Thank you, Jeff, seconded by Bonnie. Council discussion.
Adam, can I
Yes.
speak to a couple items here?
Yep.
It was brought to my attention since the agenda went out last week that there have been some complaints received by members of the council about the location where some activity is being conducted by the landscape contracting business that is listed as item 10C. I can't say for certain if those are violations, but I think it would be appropriate if the council would want more information on that. It could be tabled to the work session meeting, which would be next Monday. We probably should address that as staff, because one of the requirements of the license is that the applicant affirm they need to comply with all city ordinances. However, I don't see that there's anything in the ordinance specific to revocation of a license if somebody fails to do that. So, and between that and the city attorney not being available tonight, that might be prudent to table just for a week to the next meeting. The other thing, I guess, yes, thank you. That was an error on the on listing the one public hearing twice, not including the public hearing on the proposed ordinance amendment about signage for short-term rentals or vacation rentals. That probably shouldn't be done as an addition to the consent agenda because it wasn't listed on the printed agenda. However, I just keep talking, I'm sorry. However, there's no ordinance or statute requirement for this action setting hearings. We typically bring those to council on the consent agenda simply so you know it's coming. And you know, next time you get your agenda packet, you're like, what is this? I might need some more time to look into it. So I would suggest possibly tabling the application for landscape contractor. That would be up to council, obviously. Would simply note for the record that hearing, as you described it on the code amendment about signs for vacation rentals, will appear for public hearing, but council probably shouldn't act on that because it wasn't listed on the agenda.
Under C, would that affect anything that he is doing within the coming week? Would that put his business on hold?
I can't speak to that. Apparently the business has been, it would render it illegal to be transacting business at properties within the city of Two Rivers. I don't know how long this business has existed and not had a license already, but it's been a while.
That would be up to Jeff and Bonnie. I think that was right. Jeff and Bonnie? That'd be up to Jeff and Bonnie there. So Jeff, do you want to exclude C and table that next week, or do you want to go ahead with your motion as is?
Actually, do we need to have a meeting on it?
No, I think I think it did. I think city staff wanted to take a look at some concerns that were brought up to council members about, I think it was it noise? Chopping of wood?
There was also concerns brought forth about equipment storage, using their residence as a yard.
Okay. Okay,
Stuff like
so
that.
I guess those were the concerns brought forward on that. I think city staff just wants to talk with them to see what's actually going on there at that residence so they can get the proper permits, or if.
I can't state it authoritatively, but we've had complaints that certainly raise the issue. Is there activity associated with the business happening at the individual's residence? In which case you're supposed to have a home occupation, a permit, which may fall in the category of home occupation where a public hearing and conditional use permit are required. And
Hold off on that until then, until they
Next week?
get more background on it.
Okay.
Intent is we'll definitely place it on the
Bonnie,
agenda.
you agree with that?
Yeah.
Put that on the agenda for next week for work session.
Correct.
So we will remove C out of there and will be transferred to the agenda for next week. Any other council discussion? Yes,
What's
Tracy.
happening with H?
H is just, I scratched H on my own and put in the sign for vacation
Oh, I
rentals.
see. Okay.
That was supposed to be H, for whatever reason, it got doubled up, one reason or another.
So actually, their action then would be on A through G.
So we're striking H.
Right. There'll still be a hearing.
Yep, no matter what,
And we're
it's a
not
hearing.
following our normal
Yep. There's no law that says we
but
have
there's
to.
not a legal requirement to act on
Okay.
setting the hearing. I think it's still a good idea that we routinely list those on the agenda. We had a whoops this time, but staff has in the past, when there was a whoops, scheduled the hearing nonetheless. So.
Any other discussion? See none,
I
all in
have a-
favor indicate, oh,
Just a
sorry, go ahead,
question.
Bonnie. Yep.
So you're not putting the or what is it, short-term rentals? We're not voting on that.
Not voting on it, no, but there will be a hearing at the second meeting.
No,
in
I mean, just,
September,
I
the
just want to
same,
be
but
clear
I-
about this.
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Any other questions? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On to 11, City Council formal items. We have two. The first is a request from Berserkers at 1811 19th Street on Wednesday, September 20th, 2023, from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. to waive the provisions of sections 9-25B 2B regarding noise audible within an enclosed structure used for residential purposes, and section 9-2-5D pertaining to vibration. The recommended action is a motion to approve the request as submitted. Any background, Greg?
I think not. This is a request by the business owner. It's kind of an opportunity to have a band that's touring internationally, perform locally. Obviously, Mr. Petri, as the owner of Berserkers, I expect will be announcing an intent to abstain on this matter, but the request would be for a waiver of the provisions for both noise and vibration, as noted. It's a little unusual on a Wednesday night, but it's not a typical circumstance. It's an opportunity the business has identified and requested.
All right, we'll look for a motion on this. Thank you, Bill. Seconded by Darla. Sorry, Tracy. I was looking at multiple people. Yeah, you're twins. You're twinning. Hi,
A
Tracy.
little taller.
Yeah. All right, seconded by Tracy. Council discussion. All right, see none. Okay, Tim will abstain from this vote as being the owner of Berserkers. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. And finally, B, comfort resolution directing staff to proceed with activities necessary to amend tax increment financing district TID 14 to assist with new development and provide necessary public infrastructure at the Woodland Dunes Industrial Park. Recommended action, motion to waive reading and adopt the resolution. Greg.
This is another one of those things that, as a matter of local practice, we typically bring to council, or what we call a comfort resolution, either to kick off the process for creation of a new TIF district or to amend the project plan for an existing district. Statute doesn't require this particular step, but again, you're the council, you're the people that ultimately this will come back to, along with the Joint Review Board, after Plan Commission has held public hearing and staff has put work into it. So it probably makes sense to at least up front say, are you good with kicking this process off? It's better than finding out at the end that you're not happy with it. So we've got a good thing going with our still fairly young TID number 14 out at the Woodland Industrial Park. Among the activities listed in the project plan are at the present time cash grants to developers. The council has previously committed to one for All Energy Management, local firm that built a $1.5 million plus new facility out there. We have discussed in closed session with council at a recent meeting another development prospect proposing a project, new construction out at the industrial park, where TIF assistance is part of what they're requesting. And that would take us to or above the dollar amount that's cited in the current TIF project plan of $450,000 in grants to businesses. So this would direct staff to go back to Plan Commission, evaluate the options for providing for additional grants to assist businesses coming to the park. Understand, anytime there's one of those grants, it has to be the subject of a written development agreement that comes to and is approved by this council. But if it ain't in the plan, we can't address it. The second thing, the existing plan does provide for some investment of TID $14 in extending infrastructure further in that area south of 310 as development may require. And we've got some numbers in the existing plan. Frankly, they look a little bit light if we have to do any major expansion of Browns Drive to the south. Again, this isn't a mandate to spend, but if it ain't in the plan, at least beyond what's in there now, it shouldn't be undertaken. So would ask for council approval of this resolution, directing the city manager and staff to proceed with all necessary activities related to creating an amendment to the project plan for TID 14 to address funding levels provided in that plan for TID 14 funded activities of developer grants and public infrastructure investment out at the park. And I think what that will mean is not only taking into account the lift we expect we'll see from this one new business we're talking with, but as we did with the old TID 5 that covered the industrial park, making some assumptions as to some future development happening out there. And if it happens, to the extent it happens, having a related expenditure amount. Again, if the money's not there, you can't spend it. But that's what this is about.
All right, looking for a motion on that.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Scott. Seconded by Darla. Council discussion. Seeing none, it is a resolution. Roll call vote. Amanda.
Darla Leclerc.
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Bonnie Shimalunas.
Aye.
Scott Steckmeister.
Aye.
Adam Wahusky. Jeff Dilke.
Aye.
Tracy
Aye.
Coach.
Aye.
Bill Leclerc.
All right, thank you on that. For information only, Greg, you have that?
Just remind you, we do have the monthly work session next Monday, and it will include that one item on the landscaper license that was deferred from tonight, plus other items for that agenda. Border review and open book. Oh my goodness, have these been moved again, Dave? Are those the right dates now, or are we looking at further extension of those dates? I did see an email from our contract assessors on that.
Yes, they have been changed.
Yeah, so, and we also have a meeting scheduled this week with our contract assessing firm to talk about several outstanding issues, including the fact that the city manager and the staff, and probably the council too, aren't real happy with changing open book and border review dates every time we turn around. So
it's not on August 30th. Do we have a date?
sorry about that,
I don't think it's nailed down. It was somewhere around the 14th.
I believe it's September 13th at 4 p.m.
Oh, okay.
we'll get
Should
that.
maybe stick to that one.
It would be good for their credibility and serving the community that we hired them to serve.
Yes.
And we'll
I
be
would agree.
reinforcing that when we meet this week.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's all I have there. We are requesting the closed session as identified on the agenda for a discussion on possible city assistance to development projects.
Anything when we come back into open session?
I don't expect any action other than to adjourn.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then on to 13, closed session. The city council reserves the right to enter into closed session per Wisconsin statute 19.851E when deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reason require a closed session. Tonight, we will consider possible city assistance to development projects. Looking for a motion to go into closed session. Thank you, Jeff. Second by Tim. Council discussion. See none. This is a roll call vote. Amanda.
Tim Petrie. Aye. Bonnie Shimalunas.
Aye.
Steckmeister.
Aye.
Adam Wahusky.
Aye.
Jeff Dilke.
Aye.
Tracy Coach. Bill Leclerc. Darla Leclerc.
Aye.
All right. Thank you.